Besides the players, there is a member of the St. Louis Blues staff that has really impressed me. So I'm going to talk more about him coming up here on Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about the St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk some more about development camp and a staff member that really did stand out to me. Will we be a playoff team this season? More thoughts on that previous episode that I did. And Robert Thomas season again. A lot to dive into. Make sure, by the way, that you're liking this video on YouTube. And if you're listening on all other podcasting forums, whether that's Spotify, Apple Music, SiriusXM, give this a follow and stay in tune with all things Blues. Before I go any deeper, I do want to let you know, however, that today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Still searching for great candidates for your company? Don't search, just match with Indeed. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hire? You need Indeed. When it comes to the St. Louis Blues and how they had development camp, I think they did a really good job of getting the players comfortable with each other. They released this cool video today of some of the prospects playing pickleball, which I thought was interesting. That's become a huge phenomenon, by the way, pickleball. Do you play pickleball? I'm curious. But anywho, the one thing about development camp that stood out to me was Brian Elliott, aka Moose, and his involvement. Brian Elliott has always been one of those players around the National Hockey League that I have enjoyed tremendously. But the one thing about him in his coaching style is his transparency, his honesty, and his encouraging ways and mannerisms about himself. I think that being in the game for such a long time, he's developed a lot of skill. And I think that with all that skill, all that he's done, all that he's accomplished, it really does show with how he's coaching. So I do think that this is a great position for him. I think not only is this a good position for him to be in, but I think this is going to be really benefiting the goalies of the St. Louis Blues. And I know right now we have Binnington and Hofer, so no need to worry about anybody else at the moment. But I'm just saying that when it comes to the longevity of the St. Louis Blues, I feel really good about it. Anyways, I want to just say this too. I feel like development camp really did bring out a lot of positive of some of these players. I think that I learned a lot about just how the coaching works in general. This is more of a general statement. So I just feel like overall it's just been a very beneficial thing. But when you have guys like a Brian Elliott, you have different, coaching staff members that have really just made these guys comfortable. That is a huge thing. Thinking about development camp, though, and I touched on this beforehand, Dvorsky. I really think he's ready. I do. There's not a doubt in my mind that says, wait, I feel like this is a player that showed his skill. I mean, he was lights out, clearly the most dominant player at camp. Is there a reason why the Blues should wait with him? I understand, it's always better to get as ready as you can be without being on the team. I get that's like a thing, but he doesn't need to be. He's the kind of guy that you can put in. And I know Dylan and I talked about this on the second line, and he will be fine. He really will be. I mean, you watch the scrimmage that they had, and he was a clear standout. I mean, I really hope that the Blues were able to look at this development camp and take away the fact that they have a guy that is ready to play some NHL minutes. Maybe you have him on the T-Birds for a little bit, right? That could always be a possibility. But I just feel like he's such a good player and such a huge asset that why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not put him in? I personally think, though, when it comes to our development camp and players that stood out, he is a clearly obvious player. And I know that sometimes it's a little hard for the guys at development camp to then make the team. I get it. But I don't see why not. And I don't feel like you could argue that one either. I mean, the Blues will be a better team if he plays the season. But I also have a feeling too that that may not happen. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so hard to read what this team wants to do. And I know they signed a bunch of guys, and I understand the direction that they're heading in. It's like a retool, not a rebuild. And I get that. And I'm talking out loud here because I am trying to figure out myself even what the St. Louis Blues are going to do. I think that, with Suter, I like him. I think that was a fine move. I mean, they're making, the Joseph brothers, I think they're making fine moves. I know, there's like those tongue twister kind of names. For me, Fosca, like with it's hard, but whatever. People are going to make fun of me either way. But the point that I'm trying to make is that they were making good moves. So I don't see why they wouldn't do this move. I feel like this move would only benefit the St. Louis Blues, but man, I also can't stop thinking about, Brian Elliott. I mean, there was a video that the Blues put out on their YouTube channel, St. Louis Blues, and he really just was so encouraging, and I really am enjoying this. I'm enjoying seeing players who played the game take on other responsibilities with the organizations. And, obviously Moose played for us before. Like, he's been with a bunch of teams, but it is so encouraging to me to see how our young players are responding to alumni like a Brian Elliott. I love the involvement, obviously, of the Kachucks. Like, there is just so many good things that our alumni base has. And one of them is truly alumni that care about the well being of this organization and team. And, we're seeing that Steen take over soon. Like, I think that we just have something very special in St. Louis with our, alumni, with how everybody interacts. It's like a family. It's not just a hockey organization, it's a family. But Brian Elliott, that was such a good move that the Blues made. So smart and a great hockey mind. I think anytime you bring in, a skills coach or goalie coach or any kind of coach that has its own kind of like niche in a way, or niche, or whatever you say it, it's always better when you have something that once played the game, that knows how to, truly get in that same mentality of, okay, well, I see why, you're moving your body this way or that way. I think that he just so on it. And it gives me excitement. I mean, I know it's a long time away, maybe, from the Blues getting like another goalie Tatum. I like what they have now, but it's not a bad thing to have this. I see it as only a positive and something that's beneficial. However, Bennington is getting a little older, so I'm not saying he's old. I'm just saying he's getting older. So it's not, one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, obviously in like the next 5 years, we're going to have a discussion. But Moose even said it the best. He was like, with the goalies, and this was the line that stood out to me. I'm not going to quote it word for word because I don't know it word for word. He says the development with goalies takes longer because their mistakes are more visible than anybody else on the team. And think about that. Seriously. He is saying, yeah, if a goalie messes up and doesn't make a save, that could be a difference of a game. The pressure that goalies have is tremendous. It is insanity. It's a lot. I don't know how they do it, honestly. And they're always so composed. And I know they're professionals, but he made a great point. When they mess up, it could literally be the factor of you win or you lose, which then goes into points to go into the playoffs. But our goalies did a great job this season. And it was not their fault that the Blues didn't get all the points that they needed. I think that Benner had a fantastic season. So I was quite impressed with how he played. Anywho's, I do have some more to talk about when it comes to the Blues and the playoffs, but I do want to let you know about my friends over at Indeed. So, this is what you need to do. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work, use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with a candidate faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster, 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to recent Indeed survey. One thing that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring in one place so easy because everything on Indeed is laid out for you perfectly, and it makes finding that perfect candidate a breeze. Okay? So this is what you need to do. You need to join more than the 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at indeed.com/locked on. Just go to indeed.com/locked on right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed through this podcast. Indeed.com/locked on. Terms and conditions apply. You need a hire. You need Indeed. Indeed, you do. I have talked about this before. Will the St. Louis Blues be a playoff team? Yes. I think too. And I know when I said it before, they didn't make all the moves that they have made recently, which we've talked about. I think that this team is set up to be in the playoffs. I think that you have a lot of now veteran experience. You also have potentially some of the younger guys getting an opportunity. The one thing that concerns me with the Blues is still some of the defense, and I know I'm never going to get over it. Probably won't. But other than that, I think that everything about this season will be better. I know that some of the moves, maybe they weren't crazy big news, but you know what? You're still getting names that have been around. You're getting hopefully a very motivated team last year, the guys that were on the team that have something to prove. We've talked about him, about Braden Shen, about how he has something to prove. But I think that Dvorsky, though, if they do allow him to play, he's going to be a huge factor into, the postseason. Listen, I know it's early. It is July 16th. Who am I to all of a sudden say, hey, this is how the Blues are going to do? We haven't had training camp yet. There's a lot that we still have to look forward to. And I get that. But I think the bottom line is that despite the fact that there is still so much time between now and the season, you have to begin thinking about the season because I don't think the Blues are going to do anything else. I know there was a rumor about a trade. I don't know anything about it, honestly. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think so. I really just don't see the reason why they won't be in the playoffs. And I did say that it would be a wild card spot again. I mean, the Central is stacked. Obviously, Nashville got scary, but besides Nashville, you also have the Winnipeg Jets, who are a really good team. The Dallas Stars, the Avalanche. Like you have teams that are good in the Central. I just don't think the Blues are good enough to compete with those teams, which is fine, which is why there's always that wild card option. You have two wild card spots, go after it, St. Louis. Or who knows, like maybe the teams that we think are going to do good in the Central won't. I know we just have Locked On Stars. I'll have to do a crossover with Anne from Locked On Predators to talk about her team and how they kind of scare me. And then maybe we'll do something with like the Winnipeg Jets. Like I want to talk to all the different hosts because I want to get their perspectives on how their respective team will be doing this season. I feel like now with the off season, we have so much time to have discussion and conversation about these things, right? We're not just talking about, oh, well, the Blues need to get 2 more points to be in contention for the playoffs. No, we're having fun. We're allowed to talk about everything and anything. And part of that conversation is if the St. Louis Blues are going to be a playoff team. It's going to be a conversation you and I will have throughout this entire summer. I can promise you that. because right now they need to go back to the playoffs. I just don't understand the reasoning as to why not. And what I mean by that is last season you didn't really do much with roster additions, really, or subtractions. This season, it seems like they're finally making those moves. So I am quite curious now if the moves that they're making are going to contribute to a successful playoff team this coming season. What I don't want to happen, though, is for them to have to fight like the last week. I want them to go into the playoffs with a breeze and an ease and not be super stressful for my own sanity. I don't want them to fall behind. Like, I need them to beat San Jose. Like, there's a lot that I need the Blues to do this season. And the thing is, last season, they lost to the Sharks in the 3 games. You're not a playoff team if you can't beat one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League, respectively. Struggled against way too many teams that were not that good, which then showed me, okay, well, maybe the Blues are just not that good then. Good teams don't struggle that much against bad teams. Now, I understand that the Oilers struggled big time against the San Jose Sharks, but it happens. But it's not like every time they played, they lost like we did. Like, it was embarrassing how they lost, and we had way too many losses that were like blowout losses. They just weren't playing good hockey. And I am sorry about that. I'm sorry for myself because I had to watch it. I'm sorry for you because you had to watch it. And for the guys, because I'm sure that nobody wants to go out and play bad hockey. But it happened. What's in the past is in the past. And nothing that the team can do about that now. But it's never too early to have these discussions because I do believe that the Blues will be a playoff team. I said it once. I'll say it now. I will say it again and again and again, but through a wild card. How cool would it be though if we actually did well in the Central? Like, that would be like the most ideal situation is if we killed it in the Central, but I don't see that happening. I know it's unfortunate and it sucks and it's discouraging, and I understand that. It just is an unfortunate situation for the Blues, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that one. They better be in it. I also want to let you know to make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Blues on YouTube. We have been getting crazy engagement on the page, and I have been loving talking to you about all things Blues hockey, and really excited for this season and what is to come for this channel. I will be heading out to St. Louis this year for a couple games, so pumped for that. Start off the season right, heading out to the draft. So I have just been trying my hardest to get as much Blues content with not living in the area locally. But you know what? Part of this podcast, it allows me to talk about the team that I love so much, which is the St. Louis Blues, the team that I am a fan of, and a team that has Robert Thomas. That is right. Baby, it's Robert Thomas season again. I understand. Robert Thomas is my favorite player. And I've talked about this. We know that. He had an incredible season last year, but would I be that insane to say that he might get at least 100 points? Like, I think that this is going to be his season. I have a good feeling about it. The improvements that he made last season, I talk about this a lot. He is a team player, and he's great at passing the puck. But I saw him take more opportunities this year with him shooting the puck himself. I think Thomas has grown tremendously as a player, and I am excited to see what he does. I just think that he has something to show. He is the heart and soul of this team right now. And besides him being the obvious best player on the Blues, besides Binner and Net, he also is the future of the Blues. I know I've talked about, Jake Neighbors being like the future, but Thomas is going to be the future captain. Like, there's a lot that Thomas is going to offer, and a lot that he's going to do for this organization more so than I like any other player on the team right now. So for me, it is just really exciting. I love Robert Thomas. I do. And a part of my frustration this past week was seeing rumors spread, I guess some speculation, that the Blues are going to trade him. Why? That's not happening. No one is trading Robert Thomas, and it infuriates me because he is literally the player that is the future of this organization for years to come. The St. Louis Blues are not the St. Louis Blues without Robert Thomas. So when I see things like that, it just frustrates me. And I guess sometimes my reaction is to defend the Blues, which I do. That's why my last episode I did with Dylan, I was like screaming into the camera because it's one of those things that gets me really annoyed. The amount of respect, the amount of love that I have for what Robert Thomas has done for his team since he's been here is tremendous. I feel like he plays his hardest in every single game. He steps up when needed. He puts his body on the line. Like, there is so much that he does that I feel like people just need to give him that respect that, yeah, while he is a great hockey player, he's the star player of the St. Louis Blues. He's not a guy that is disposable like that. I'm sure if they wanted to trade Thomas, they could get a lot of value out of him, but you're not going to get nearly anything as valuable as Robert Thomas himself. So, no, the Blues are not going to get rid of Robert Thomas. I just wanted to shut that down because, again, one of those things where people talk, it's not true. There's no speculation. There's no real rumors. It's just people every day talking about things, but no, he is not leaving St. Louis. Do not panic. That was my first thought was, oh my God, people are going to actually think that Robert Thomas is leaving the Blues. No, that is not happening. So take a minute, relax, regroup. He's not leaving. The Blues are fine. He is fine. Do not listen to those things. It's Robert Thomas season again. It's all you're gonna have to just like run it back every season. It's always gonna be Robert Thomas season. So we'll have more to talk about this week. I'm not gonna lie to you. I did wake up sick today, so if I'm as energetic, my deepest apologies. I am about to go back to bed. But I want to come on here and talk some Blues with you. So I'll talk to you tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.